Our buddy
Yeah.
Antoine and also Gerardo are both asking here. So Gerardo mentions here, first and foremost, Matt, thank you so much for the wonderful USC hoops insight on Trojans Wire. Very enjoyable. Also, the question about Big Ten play. Okay, so it's 9 conference games. First and foremost, Gerardo, the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. And what would be the likely makeup of the USC non-conference schedule going forward? Antoine asked the same thing about USC Notre Dame going forward.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to play 9 games, like the with a 16-team Big Ten. Like that's you're going to have 9 games. I mean, the SEC with 16 teams with Texas and Oklahoma, like that's going to be a 9-game schedule. Like you don't think that Fox and ESPN, Disney are doing all this to stay at 8. Like you're definitely going to have a 9th game so that you have Oklahoma, Georgia for ESPN, Disney, and you have USC, Michigan. And these other cross-pollination games in the Big Ten for Fox and Big Noon Saturday and what have you. So it's definitely going to be a 9-game schedule. And Gerardo, on one of our archived episodes here at the Voice of College Football, I'm pretty sure it was in mid-January. Not sure whether it was like episode 39, 40, 41, probably one of those 3, because this is show number 45. But Mark and I talked about, what does USC do with Stanford and Cal once it goes to the Big Ten, because you have those long-standing in-state games that USC plays against Stanford and Cal. So you would think that USC would want to hold on to at least one of them, or maybe you rotate them. You play Stanford one year, Cal the next. But some USC fans have said, like, I don't want to play those guys anymore. I want to play other teams now that we're in the Big Ten, freshen things up. But Mark made the point that, with USC going to the Big Ten, USC is basically going to be playing a new slate of games. So why not have a traditional Stanford and Cal game as an anchor especially in the first few years after the move to the Big Ten, to kind of keep things a little bit stable? You're going to be playing 9 new games, 9 new teams on your slate. And maybe then like in 2028, 2029, okay, then you branch out and you say, goodbye trees, goodbye golden bears. Maybe we'll play you once every 5 years or so, but it's time for us to visit new people, make new friends on our non-conference schedule. So I do think that USC would want to naturally play Stanford and Cal, on a continuous basis, maybe not every year, but certainly, on a rotation basis, just because why? It's not much travel, because like USC is going to be doing a lot of traveling in the Big Ten. So having a non-conference game against Stanford or Cal, that's a game you don't have to travel very long to play. And that's going to be, that there's going to be a certain appeal to that game. So Notre Dame, and then one of Stanford or Cal, and then probably a cupcake. That's probably going to be the mixture for several years, the first several years after the move to the Big Ten. Now, what's coming down the pike in the 2030s, I don't know, but I'm sure here's the thing. I don't think the relationship with Stanford and Cal is immediately going to be severed when USC goes to the Big Ten. There's certainly going to be a desire to hang on at least for a little bit, but long term, then, your guess is as good as mine.
Antoine doesn't believe that USC is going to be too crazy about playing and continuing the series with Notre Dame, having to take on a Big Ten schedule. And I know Connor's going to take exception to Antoine stating that USC is going to have a much tougher schedule in the Big Ten, but they are. So anyway, I just think USC and Notre Dame, Antoine made a statement earlier, and he's brought this to my attention in the past, that he would love to see Notre Dame be forced to join a conference, and thinks that, the Big Ten and other conferences have an opportunity here to kind of freeze out Notre Dame. But I just don't see that happening. There would have to be a ton of cooperation between leagues to freeze out Notre Dame and keep them from being able to schedule football games.
Here's a thought for Antoine and other people asking about USC's schedule configuration in the Big Ten. And I don't know what conversations athletic director Mike Bone has had with Big Ten brass and with Fox brass, but I would certainly like to think that as AD, he has had these conversations. But an idea could be, that in the years when USC plays at Notre Dame, so has to go to South Bend in mid-October, that either on the front end or the back end, and actually probably the back end would be better, that USC plays a road game at Indiana or Purdue, so that it can basically stay in the same area, very, very minimal travel connected to the week of the road trip to South Bend. And you can basically just, take a bus to West Lafayette or Bloomington, specific arrangements such as that to minimize travel and minimize the strain on USC athletes. One of the things we're definitely going to see with USC in the Big Ten for football, and actually it's also going to be true for basketball, playing clusters of games or at least pairs of games. Like, you are not going to see USC make a road trip to the Eastern time zone, fly back to LA the next week, go back to the Eastern or Central time zones. You're going to see 2-game pairs at minimum, maybe 3-game clusters, but I'm definitely confident you're going to see 2-game pairs, road home, so that you just can't be zigzagging. And I would certainly think that Mike Bones had those conversations. I would certainly think that he didn't, and that he and Carol Folt wouldn't have signed off on the Big Ten arrangement, even with all the loot that USC is going to get. I'm sure they would not have, agreed to this if they didn't have some ironclad assurances that, hey, we're not going to have any more plane flights than absolutely necessary. We have to have certain stipulations and guardrails in place. So hopefully there will be things like that in the years when you go to South Bend, that they're bracketed with a game in Bloomington, in West Lafayette, as opposed to, going to South Bend and then going to Lincoln, or a game in South Bend and then you go to Rutgers. Like, that would be terrible, and it would make no sense at all. You play the in-state Indiana game in the Big Ten right next to the Notre Dame game, whether it's before or after. So we'll see about that, but I'm pretty confident that those kinds of things are going to be baked into USC's Big Ten football scheduling map once it's revealed and laid out in full.
And there's a number of other options within conference play: Rutgers, Maryland, Michigan State, Northwestern, Illinois, and as Matt says, Indiana, Purdue as well, which would lead me to believe, and I'm no master at scheduling football conferences, but that USC and UCLA would be given some type of priority, not favoritism, but just let's look at their schedule first. And because we have less options with them than we do with everyone else, let's set their schedule first. Obviously, it's all going to be released at the same time, but theirs is going to be the most difficult to accommodate. So let's work on theirs first, and then we can massage the other ones and work with the rest of the teams because there are more options.